Hey again, friends, it's Michael Goldsman from clearingconnect.com here with you today. I want to talk to you about something particularly interesting to me. I don't know if you can see this. It's a chart that I've created called Traumatic Life Exits and Entrances. You can see some of the words on there. It's this dowsing chart. So what is that chart about and what do I use it for? Well, I use it in my karma clearing work. Now this gets into a more specific area, which many of you are very attuned to anyway, which is the idea of past lives. So I was not raised with any kind of idea of past lives. I thought people who believed in them were crazy when I was growing up. But it's not so much that I've changed my belief, it's that I've really opened my mind and my spirit to more a larger idea of life. So it's my viewpoint that we each have had past lives. Now, some systems say, I've had a few dozen, I've had a few hundred. Some say maybe thousands. One of the systems that I most work with said that the person who channeled that system believed that about 300,000 or so lifetimes was about the maximum that an individual soul could have. I think some of the numbers are dependent on what we mean by lifetimes. You know, when we're talking about the non-physical world, there's all sorts of different perspectives that we can have on it. And it's not to say that we can conclusively, logically, mentally know which particular perspective is right and then the rest of them are wrong. I don't think it's like that. In my opinion, we can have non-physical lifetimes also where it's considered a lifetime of experience, but we are infinite souls. And we have I even say we have an infinite number of lifetimes in a sense, because there's no time or place in spirit and we're constantly experiencing. So anyway, the purpose of this video though is to talk about one of my most powerful experiences of karma clearing. And that's when we begin to go into researching and then clearing past life traumatic death karma or even traumatic birth karma. I want to create more of a video on this because it's probably the most visceral, experiential form of karma clearing that I do. Now, how people experience the clearings is different depending on the clearing and depending on the person. But when we start getting into these traumatic death transitions, it becomes particularly noticeable and powerful to most people. So what do I mean here? I mean that in our past lives, we may have died intentionally or unintentionally, possibly on our own or at the hands of someone else, again, through negligence or through intentional harm. We may have died in what's called a traumatic death transition type of a way. And what happens is that when we die in these lifetimes, we are not able to resolve the way in which we died or that particular trauma. And because there's no time in the incarnation left, we leave the body. And whatever we have not, in general, throughout the course of a lifetime, whatever we have not resolved in the course of a lifetime ends up rising up and being pulled into the deeper, subtler bodies, entering into the Akashic field of our being. And it becomes part of our learning and growth process for additional lifetimes after that. So, oftentimes in life, in general, if we have something difficult that happens, we have time where we can process it, we can heal it, and we may not take that as karma after that lifetime. But when the death transition has taken place and it's difficult or traumatic, we often don't. So it becomes a karmic situation. Not only that, but if there is intentional harm committed, think about the history of humanity, even what's happening in the world now. Tons and tons of people are inflicting intentional harm that can often lead to death of others. And there's no consciousness around it. There's no sense of, I'm causing harm to you, I'm causing harm to the collective, I'm causing harm to myself. People just do things unconsciously because it's expedient for them in the moment and there's some sort of sense of advantage to them. So these death transitions, I have researched also with the help of some of my colleagues. I have about 75 categories, including death through infection, imprisonment, religious reasons. There's definitely sexual violence reasons here. Religious reasons is a big one. Racial reasons, punishment for a crime, various types of medical issues, suicide, traumatic illness, being in violence and war. I don't mean to be gruesome when talking about these kinds of things, but my system of clearing is based on doing what I call research, which means that we go into the energy and we ask for some details and specific information, like in a dowsing chart kind of way, about what is the issue we're looking for here? Where is there a traumatic death transition? Why are we asking for that in the first place? I'm glad you asked that. So we're asking for that not to show off and not for me or for my client to try to be impressive, like, well, that's interesting that we died in this particular way. It's because that karma, by its nature of being intense, often at the hands of another, intentionally or unintentionally, and not being able to be resolved within the course of the lifetime it's happened in, it can become one of the most overwhelming, difficult karmas, or it can influence difficult situations, create difficult situations in our life now and for many, many lifetimes afterwards. It can also reflect and then cause more particular relationship challenges. The beings that we have committed these death transitions with in other lifetimes often come back into this lifetime, and they're close connections of ours. They can be family, biological family, step family if we have that. They can be family of choice, boyfriend, girlfriend, romantic interest. They can be people who are perpetrators or victims of crimes that we are somehow involved with in this lifetime also. And that's often intentional. It's not because of punishment. If someone has committed, say they've killed us in a past lifetime, there's often many lifetimes before that where there's a lot of karma before that particular time. But then that lifetime, when we end up in the non-physical, when that other soul ends up in the non-physical, we think, wow, we have perspective on it. We see, wow, something went wrong, something went off and went wrong that led us to that particular point where I believed I had to perhaps intentionally or unintentionally take the life of another. And we plan a lifetime where we say, well, if we're going to work on this issue, we're not going to want to work on it because the karma, we're going to feel that karma come in our next lifetime more. So let's put ourselves in the same family. Let's be the father-child. Let's be mother-child. Let's be romantic partner. Let's be brother-sister. Let's be whatever. Something where we cannot just easily say, oh, no, I'm not going to deal with that. Because remember, one of our purposes in life initially is for us to work through our karma. We have to become more consciously and actively free before we can really get to the heavenly energy, the good stuff, the stuff of fulfillment, success, being and shining our light on the planet for the betterment of others. We can't necessarily get there as easily until we deal with our karma. So these issues will come in, and we'll choose to be in a situation where we will not avoid that other particular character in our soul's history. Now, here's the thing that we might not realize is that we have often been the perpetrator. Perhaps it's not always equal. Some souls tend to have more of a lesson of I'm the victim of things. Over the course of 90% of death transitions in a particular session, I might see that. Or 10% of the time, I might be the perpetrator more often. These things stay with us. Now, they can cause literal ramifications in our present life. For instance, classic example is if someone has died through fire, for instance. So fire may be intentional in some cases, may be unintentional. If we've died in lifetimes through fire, we may end up with respiratory issues in this lifetime. That's a karmic reason. Not necessarily saying don't do everything you can holistically and medically. Of course, you would need to do that to work with your breathing or allergies. These things can have karmic components in this way. So it can be directly related, especially the more intensified and traumatic the transition, often the more physicalized or visceral the ramifications of that will be in the course of this lifetime. But more often than not, when people are really stuck or blocked in life, they're stuck or blocked. That's the symbolic ramification of a lot of congested, held, blocked energy from intensive past life experiences, or present life experiences also. So sometimes we're not clearing about the literal. We're trying to get this person to feel more free, to open up, to be themselves, to be able to, just breathe and to feel like they have agency and they have power. When it comes down to it in life, if each one of us, I think if I had to encapsulate the spiritual journey, if we felt like we have the power to be, do, and have what we truly love, to share our gifts with others in a way that, it just makes them happy and it uplifts their life. I think that's really the secret. We would feel so good. We'd feel that's our definition of success. It's not about accumulation just of things. It's about feeling in the flow of life. And when we are unable to do that, one of the karmic reasons can be energy has gotten really stuck, it's really gotten hardened. So we often see that there may be sometimes in my research hundreds or even thousands of lifetimes where someone has either died or killed another person in exactly the same way. And there's many different ways we've transitioned over the course of hundreds of thousands or infinite lifetimes. But sometimes there's one significant one where it's like, okay, this is me and my mother in this lifetime. We had 5,000 lifetimes where this scenario went on. That may sound like an exaggeration, or it may sound like a lot, but we humans are often very slow and reluctant to learn and to grow, even when something's right in our face. We're like, no, I'd rather just maintain my ignorance, my old perspective, rather than actually changing my mind. Imagine that. So all of this to say, I'm trying to give you some perspective in this video. I thought this might be too intensified to bring this particular clearing process to a video like this. I have done group clearings in the past and continue to do them on these topics of traumatic death transitions, but they're also something that can be done in individual clearings. And a lot can get resolved very quickly. People may feel tremendous. It can be used, for instance, in a relationship clearing. If you're having a particular relationship challenge, someone you can't let go of from the past, even if they've died already, someone in the present you want to resolve things with or you want to let go, or someone you want to attract in the future, you may not even know them yet. This type of work, when something feels like it can't really break forth and loosen up in the karma in our life, this type of work is beneficial. Here's another reason why, though, is because the death transition karma is literally the loss of our life or our responsibility for the loss of someone else's life. It strikes right in the root chakra. Root chakra is our survival, physical being, physical body manifestation system. And when things cannot move in life, it's often because that area of our being is really stuck. This is our sense of safety and survival. And for some people, their entire journey in life is all about, how do I get my being to let go and to relax a little bit more so that I'm not constantly blocked in attraction, manifestation, healing, whatever, by I can't get my being to feel safe or like I'm going to be okay, I'm going to survive if I make changes, if I open to something new, if I start a business, if I start a relationship, we can't get through that block. And one of the karmic reasons for that can be these traumatic death transitions. I don't know if I would do this quite as much now. An earlier version of this chart, I had maybe 67 different methods that I had researched, and some of them are large categories of traumatic death transition. And we used to do one group clearing where we would hit all of them. So you can get all that from my website now, clearingconnect.com. Even though it was recorded in the past, it's still energetically active now. I would have lots of reports from people after those clearings that was incredibly intense for them. I probably now, with better judgment, maybe I would break that apart and do a few at a time in the course of a clearing, because each category of those 67 can represent hundreds of different lifetimes where we've experienced the same death transition. So, well, kids, this is not the kind of information you're going to get in school. But I wanted to share some of my perspective and teaching on this issue and get you thinking about there may be more spiritually going on that's beneath the surface of challenges in your life than you realized, but that it is possible for you to release this stuff and to feel better. We still need to do our human work, our emotional work. We still need to eat right. We still need to move the body and forgive and practice those things, but the spiritual component of our being, which holds our whole soul's history, is very important to access regularly, to work with clearing, transmuting, releasing, so that we can be full spectrum beings, multidimensional beings, and firing on all cylinders, as they say. All the different components of our being, when they're open, when they're malleable, when they're flowing with each other, when they're harmonized, it makes life just much more beautiful. So I'm sure you'll have questions. Please post comments below if you'd like. You can always find me, any things I've been talking about here, or get in touch with me through my website linked below here, clearandconnect.com. Look forward to next time with you, friends. Till then, peace and blessings to you. Bye-bye.